So you finished your APA research paper, and now it's time to put in all your references. Well, you've come to the right place. I'm going to show you some tips and guidelines to help you create an accurate and correct APA reference page. But first things first, you've just finished writing your paper, and you've concluded with an insightful and amazing conclusion, and you're ready to jump in and start listing your sources. But hold on. You don't list your sources right at the bottom of the same page that you've ended your paper on. You need to insert a page break so that it forces the start of your reference list to the top of the next page. So now we can start. Oh, but wait, hold on. We don't call it a bibliography. Oops, still not quite there. We don't call it a works cited page either. That's for the folks studying literature. There we go. References. That's all there is to it. Notice it's just plain text. It's not bold-faced, and it's not underlined either. Just plain, simple text, the same size as the rest of the text, but centered at the top of the page. Okay, yeah, you know where the references go now, but now what do? Well, here, let's look at the basics first. We'll start by looking at the basic anatomy of a reference citation. And we'll use a basic journal article as our first example. So you need to list the author or authors. The year of publication will appear in parentheses next. Then the title of the article, which is not italicized or capitalized all the way through. The title of the journal is italicized and appears like a regular title of a book. The volume number is also italicized. The issue number is not, but it appears in parentheses. Then you have the page number, and if you have a digital object identifier, that comes last. So let's take a look at an example. In this case, we have 3 authors, and notice that the authors' names are last name first and then followed by the initial. You do not include their full first names or middle names, and you don't need PhD or any of that information. Then we have the date, and again notice that the title of the journal article is not italicized or underlined or in quotation marks. It just looks like a sentence, and only the first word is capitalized. The title of the journal looks like a regular title. It's italicized and all the major words are capitalized. So let's take a look at a basic book entry now. Again, we start with the author's name and the year of publication. The title is italicized. We have the place of publication and the name of the publisher. And you can usually find this information in the first couple of pages of the book. So if you look at our example, you see we have 2 authors. And notice the title of the book, in this case, it is in italics, but again, it's not capitalized all the way through. Only the first word is capitalized. So what happens if you have an edition other than the first? Like a lot of your textbooks may be a 5th edition or a 6th edition. Where do you put that information? Well, let's look at another example. We're going to put that information right after the title. We take out that period after the title, put in the edition information in parentheses, and then put a period after that and go on with the rest of the citation. So here's an example of a 5th edition of the book, The Battered Child. Okay, what if you have an editor, but there is no author for your book? Well, that's pretty easy to fix. All you do is, instead of putting an author name, which you don't have, you put the editor's name in that slot. But afterwards, you also include the EDS, or ED if there's only one editor, in parentheses to indicate that that is an editor and not an author. So take a look at this example of consequences of growing up poor. We have 2 editors here, so we have EDS in parentheses after the editor's names. Now, what about style guides? How do I figure out how to do all this stuff if I'm not sure what kind of source needs what kind of citation? Well, you can go straight to the main source, the APA Publication Manual. But you also have other options. You can check out some online resources, and the Purdue Online Writing Lab, or OWL, is an excellent source to look at. Here we are at the home page of the Purdue Online Writing Lab, or OWL. And you'll notice that there are lots of resources here. On the right-hand side, you'll see the APA Formatting and Style Guide. That's where we want to go. So I'll click on that. And it brings us to the first general information page about APA, which gives you the basic guidelines about how to format the paper and that kind of information. But if you look at the sidebar on the left, you'll see how to format in-text citations and reference entries and other information. And this is where you want to go for your reference page. So if we click on the basic rules, it'll take us to this page. It gives us just the basic information about how to handle those citations on our reference list. But if you look over here, you'll see you can look under authors to find information about how to handle multiple authors, or if you don't have an author, that kind of thing. Books, articles, it gives you all the different formats. We'll take a look over here at books real quick. You see the basic format for books, which we've gone over. You'll see what if I have a translation? What if I'm just using a chapter of a book? So you'll find lots of information over here. It also gives you information on electronic sources, things like articles that you find on the web, websites, newspaper articles that you find online. Some you find in print, some you find online. But you can find the answer to most of your questions right here in this basic guide on the Purdue OWL website. But you also have other places where you can get information on how to cite sources. In fact, if you're using something like Galileo, you can let the database engine do some of that work for you. One of the great things about using a database system like Galileo is that it will often do the citations for you and save you a lot of work. The first thing I do, though, is I start a reference page in my Word program, and it doesn't even have to be connected to your paper yet. This can just be your running list of references. And I keep that handy as I go through Galileo. Now in this case, I have one of my articles up. I'm going to use this in my paper, or at least I think I am, so I want to keep track of it. If you look over here on the right-hand side, you'll see a list of tools. One of them is Cite. Click on that, and you'll get a list of citations in a variety of formats. So you'll see you have MLA, Harvard, a lot of different things, but we want APA. So I pick this one, I highlight it, and I copy it. And then I go right to my open Word document and I paste it. So there's all the main information that I need. Now the only thing I want to do is make sure that it's formatted correctly and that I tweak any other little things that might be a little off. So in this case I want to make sure it's in the same text font. So I'll go up here and I'll change it to Times New Roman. And I'm going too fast. There we go. Make sure it's in 12-point font. And while I've got it highlighted, I'm going to change the indentation of it. With our reference page and our list of entries, we need to use what's called a hanging indent. So I have my source highlighted. I'm going to right-click and go down to Paragraph. And you'll see right here in the middle, the indentation frame. I'm going to choose Special and change it to Hanging. And there you go. You're done with that part of it. You don't have to mess with figuring out how to tab over or any of that. It's all done for you. Now the other thing you want to check is that sometimes the Galileo entries are not capitalized properly. It's probably because the entries are entered differently by different people. So in this case, we notice our title is capitalized the way we often do titles in our regular writing. But in the APA style, we only capitalize the first word of an article title or a book title. So I'm going to select the rest of it, go up here to Format, and change case. And then I'm going to tell it to make that lowercase. That way I don't have to type the entire thing over by hand. And everything else looks in order. Our title of our journal is italicized, and all the other information is there, including the digital object identifier. And there it is. It's that easy, working right from your database and putting that citation right on your page. So now let's look at the finer details of the reference page. Here we have a sample with 3 sources on it, and our sources have been numbered, 1, 2, 3. But according to APA style guidelines, we don't need to number our sources. We just list our sources in the right order. So let's take those numbers right out of there. But we do still have a problem here. We have Meshberg-Cohen, then we have Higgins, then we have Duncan. According to APA rules, we need to list them in alphabetical order. So we need to swap a few things out. Let's take Meshberg and move him and put Duncan in his place. And then we'll put Meshberg down here where he belongs. So we have Duncan, Higgins, then Meshberg-Cohen. That's the order you need. The other thing you'll notice about the reference page is that it's all double-spaced, and there are no extra spaces from one entry to the other. It's just a simple double space. The thing that indicates that we're moving to a new entry is that each entry has a hanging indent. That means that it's sort of the opposite of a paragraph. The first line goes all the way to the left, but all the subsequent lines of that entry are indented. And we showed you how to do that earlier. So let's go over the basic rules of thumb here. Your references page starts at the top of a new page, not at the bottom where you last left off with your conclusion. Always start it at the top of a new page. Everything is double-spaced. The entries are always presented in alphabetical order, and we do not number the entries. And we follow the proper format for the type of source you're using. So that's the basic information you need to create a proper references page for your APA academic research paper. I hope this tutorial has been helpful, and please come back and check out our other tutorials.